Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are live for the second ever Roto Street Journal Rankings Rundown. I, of course, am your host, The Wolf, here to just break down all the massive implications of the 2018 NFL Draft. Obviously, there's just some huge names in terms of Saquon Barkley. You can even see him on the side here. I'm getting ready to add them to my rankings right now. We got Saquon Barkley. You got Rashaad Penny, three down back for the Seahawks potentially. Derrius Guice, Rashaad Penny, Sony Michel. I mean, huge rookie running back names. They're saying that this class is deeper than last year's historic class. And we saw RB1s out of Kareem Hunt. Dalvin Cook was on his way to an RB1 season. Christian McCaffrey led the league in receptions among running backs. I mean, come on now. We got just insane stats from last year's rookie class, and they're saying this one's even deeper. So obviously the fantasy implications are going to be incredibly massive, and not only on the rookies, but the veterans around them. We've got obviously some winners here with veteran running backs avoiding further competition, with quarterbacks gaining some weaponry, but we've also got some losers here. Some guys that are now threatened by their workloads and different things like that. So huge implications on the rankings all over. We're going to dive right in and, of course, take your questions throughout the entire show. So if you're watching on Facebook Live, just make sure you're commenting in. Let us know you're here. Let us know where you're coming from, and let us know what questions you have as I'm adjusting the rankings. We'd love to make this as interactive as possible with you guys. So keep me posted with anything you have. Dynasty. Obviously we're more of a redraft league, but if you got dynasty questions, if you got any type of issues at all, let us know. But I'm going to go in ahead and add all these rookies. We're going to break them all down shortly, but there are a couple news and notes I want to make sure I cover before we dive into these rookies and these huge, massive implications that come with them. The first would obviously, again, be Cam Meredith. We never adjusted our rankings for Cam Meredith, and as this is loading, it's been a little slow tonight, so just bear with me here as we're trying to get used to loading all these different things. Cam Meredith is now a member of the Saints. This happened a few weeks ago, but obviously moving from what was the most paltry attack last year, John Fox's horrendous scheme, to now playing with Drew Brees, that's got to be considered a massive win for a guy like Cam Meredith. Huge body guy, massive body receiver that's going to be seeing his value shoot through the roof. So this just reloaded with all these new names. It's going to take a second because it's just going to keep populating down and down and down. But we're right now going into the wide receiver rankings, and we got to talk about, again, Cameron Meredith. So let's find his name. He's got to be towards the lowest end of the list here. 62. Wide receiver 62 before this move. But now moving to the Saints, playing in a Sean Payton attack, playing with Drew Brees, who, other than last year, had thrown for over 32 touchdowns in, I believe, 8 straight seasons. I mean, that's a bet I'm willing to hammer on every time. Cam Meredith, I mean, he's got to now be considered the number 2 receiver in that attack. I'm putting him right up around this range. Cooper Kupp had a great season. Devin Funchess now, definitely loser with DJ Moore coming in there, so I'm going to move him up right around here. I love Sterling Shepard and Pat Shurmur's attack. I love Odell Beckham being able to take away attention when he returns. So I'm not going to... no, you know what? He's going to go above him. He's going to go above Sterling Shepard because the touchdown upside is immense with Cameron Meredith. I mean, this is a guy who, playing with Matt Barkley, had some humongous dominant stretches. I have some stats here that could absolutely blow your mind on Cameron Meredith. So some of the outputs that he had, let's look at this. 19 fantasy points in 5 contests. And remember, he didn't start until halfway through the season. He had double-digit PPR fantasy points in 7 of 13 games, 19 in 5 of those, 22 in 3 of them, and 26 in 2, 26 or more. That's beastly outputs. And that, again, was with Matt Barkley throwing in the ball and a John Fox just pathetic, abysmal attack. So if Cam Meredith can do that with John Fox and, Matt Barkley as cement shoes we talk about at Roto Street Journal, these guys that just are weighing him down, such as, DeAndre Hopkins we saw with Brock Osweiler. If Cam Meredith can get that type of production, those massive fantasy games with those guys as an undrafted rookie free agent, what could he do with Drew Brees and Sean Payton? They just cut Colby Fleener as well, so the touchdown upside is absolutely enormous. He's a huge 6'3", just showed great body control in the red zone. So Cam Meredith definitely going up the rankings, and of course Drew Brees definitely takes a little rise up alongside him. Tyrod Taylor is going to be a massive faller tonight. But Drew Brees, again, the more and more I did the research, the more I read about how Brees has had 32 touchdowns in every single year. This was the first time in over 10 seasons he's been under 32 touchdowns. I think this is the regression of the mean. I think Brees is going to get back to that 30-plus touchdown range. I think Cam Meredith's going to be a huge part of that. So upside, wide receiver, fantasy. If he's your third, I'm feeling pretty damn good, but I would not be surprised to see him finish in the top 24 of receivers. Thanks to, again, huge touchdown upside, potential volume. Cam Meredith, a guy that I definitely want to get on my squad. Wanted to make sure I just did those rankings first, but now it is on to the rookies. And I'm going to start at the top of that list, and that's Mr. Saquon Barkley. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Everybody knows that he's the top rookie in this class. He went number 2 overall to the Giants, and for good reason. The owner, David Gettleman, came out and said, this guy's been blessed by God. Type of, I love hyperbole as much as the next guy. I love hyping people up as much as anybody out there. But that is about as hyperbolic as you get. Touched by God, certainly special. But man, he really is special. Bigger Barry Sanders. Gettleman said that this is the only perfect grade he's really had since Peyton Manning. So, I mean, that's just some serious high praise. And that's not the only scout to say so. Sean Payton obviously knows his running backs after Alvin Kamara season, after Mark Ingram. This is the best running back prospect he's seen in 25 years, he said. So this is a guy that is getting high praise from guys who know how to scout running backs. Bigger Barry Sanders, just stronger, but just as fast and elusive. Call me crazy. I'm moving him to number 5 overall, above David Johnson. You see it right here, above David Johnson, above DeAndre Hopkins, above Alvin Kamara. And why? Because one, again, we just talked about the talent, unbelievable, generational even, they're saying. But then you talk about the usage. Pat Shermer, I got the stat here. Ridiculous the way this guy breeds workhorses. From LaShawn McCoy to Steven Jackson, yes, great talents, but even Trent Richardson, just absolutely puke-worthy, as we all know. This guy has bred workhorses. They've averaged over 308 carries, his RB1s have, and over 61 targets per season. That's right around 380 touches. Are you kidding me? That type of volume for a generational talent like this is going to be absolutely massive. So Saquon Barkley, top 5 overall. I know that might be insane. It's a rookie, but the fear of the unknown is going to cost some people on what's going to be a historic campaign. I truly think he's got the upside to push Le'Veon Bell, Gurley, Zeke for those just elite workhorse bell cow guys. Barkley's going to see the volume. He's got the talent, the surrounding talent too. You got Eli Manning, not a great arm at this stage of his career, but that's actually okay because he can still move the ball, especially when you got Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram to throw to. So there's enough surrounding weapons here that you're not going to just zoom in and take out Barkley out of every game. You got Eli that can still move the ball down the field, so you can't just stack the box. But ultimately, he's not good enough to say Saquon Barkley's not going to be the centerpiece of this offense. I mean, they've already come out and said, we want to become a more run-heavy, physical team. We wanted to just establish that identity this offseason, and Barkley's going to be our franchise player the next 10 years. I believe him. I love Barkley, and I absolutely am all in on what he's going to do in 2018. So top 5 overall. Call me crazy. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But Saquon Barkley, I'm absolutely all in and all in. Just absolutely love the guy. In a tier of his own. But the next up in my rookie ranking running backs, Rashaad Penny. So he's already come out, and Pete Carroll's first things he said is, we were super excited to make this pick. Everyone's calling it a reach right now, taking him at 27 in the first round. They said they were even willing to take him up at 18 where they first had. They traded down to get him. So they truly love this guy. And he's already said, you don't need to tell me how excited I am about this pick. He's a 3-down back. He's going to contribute on every down for us. Explosive in the running game, explosive in the receiving game. Yeah, he has to improve in pass protection, which was a great call because he was horrible in pass protection last year. But assuming that gets coached up, there's no reason this guy's not going to be on the field every single snap in an offense that sorely lacked a running back. I mean, they had not a single, I think they had one rushing touchdown by running backs, around 200, total yards was their leading rusher. Just absolutely pathetic, absolutely disgusting. So the value hole was huge. In a Russell Wilson offense, which will be top 15-ish in the league, if not higher, you got yourself a 3-down horse. He's got to continue to climb these ranks. This is kind of the area. We've got, Zach Ertz, more proven. Brandon Cooks is going to be taking a little tumble. We haven't talked about him with the Rams yet. But that'll be going down as well. I say Penny, Joe Mixon. I like his chances to be a workhorse as well this year, so I'm going to put Penny right around here, 34. So right toward the tail end of your third round. I mean, you're looking at some of these guys he's alongside. I can't justify taking him over talents like Josh Gordon, Jordan Howard, Shady McCoy. But the volume there, again, 300-ish touches, I think is a very fair over-under for Rashaad Penny. And I think in an offense, again, the line is definitely worrisome. I know some of you might comment that the line is worrisome. It is. Definitely sucked last year. Definitely going to be in the bottom 20 of the league. But they added DJ Fluker, a mauling addition from Los Angeles, at least in the run game. A little bit susceptible to the pass in pass coverage, but ultimately a great run blocker. So they shore that up a little bit. He's going to get free as a receiver. They're going to use him as a receiver. Rashaad Penny, huge upside, putting him at number 34 overall. Then we got to get down to our next guy, Derrius Guice, who I put in a tier right by Rashaad Penny. Not going to see the volume in the receiving game. They already said Chris Thompson's our guy. We're going to use Chris Thompson plenty. But still, Guice is an absolute battering ram. I mean, Leonard Fournette type of talent that they somehow fell to the middle of round 2 of these character concerns and all this smoke that came out in the draft. I think it was BS. I think Guice is an absolute bulldozer. I don't even hate that he's not playing in the receiving game, because that's kind of when you see these big backs get hurt, is when they're trying to make a catch that they're uncomfortable with. They're twisting their body in weird ways. They take a weird hit. So I love Derrius Guice. I think he's going to be similar to Derrick Henry in that, bulldozing role, part of a committee, yes, but ultimately in an offense, it's going to move the ball, generate some scoring chances. So I really like Guice. I'm going to put him not in this tier, alongside Penny and these other guys that have much surer volume, but Hyde, a guy we're going to talk about, is a loser tonight. Smith, we're going to talk about Smith-Schuster here, is going to be rising, so don't worry, this is definitely too low for him. But I think Guice right in that early round 4 makes perfect sense. I think he's an absolute beast of a runner. So again, Derrius Guice, there's the slide, my bad on that. A guy that I consider in a great spot, my number 3 rookie running back. And I think he landed in a good spot. We're going to move a little bit quicker on these last ones. I can't go into as much depth, but Sony Michel, one of the biggest boom-bust prospects as I'm pulling him up here. He could outscore any of the 3 guys I just talked about other than Saquon Barkley, and really challenge for the top fantasy rookie of the year if he's used like Dion Lewis was last year. And that's about 18 to 20 touches, and if you take him in round 1 with the glaring needs the Patriots had, then they clearly want to use him. So I'm going to slide him right in around here, even above Edelman, just because running backs to me are that much more valuable. I think Sony Michel, I'm going to put him, Alex Collins will be a big riser. We'll talk about him in a second, but I like Sony Michel. He's definitely going to be above Burkhead, who's going to be a massive loser. We're going to talk about when we get to veteran losers. I'm just going to move him down to get him out of that tier. To even begin with. But Sony Michel, huge upside. I mean, the talent is ridiculous. North-south runner, gets up the field in a hurry, just can lead the league in runs of 20-plus yards as a rookie last year, even only on 150 or so carries. Sterling, 8.0 yards per carry. The guy's an absolute monster as a runner. Can get it done in the receiving game as well. Got it done against the stiffest competition, whereas we saw Chubb kind of fade against those guys. So, Sony Michel, huge boom-bust guy, but the boom is massive. The bust, of course, fumbling concerns. You know that Belichick wouldn't hesitate to put him into his doghouse. So, Sony Michel could find himself into Belichick's doghouse, but ultimately, I think the talent's too explosive. I think he's going to fix that problem and be an absolute huge addition to a very explosive offense. You don't need to tell me how good the Patriots are when you got TB12 slinging the rocks. So I love Sony Michel. I think his upside is enormous for the Patriots. The guy that you saw just right before him has an even more chance at heavy volume. That's Ronald Jones, landing with the Bucs. Very good runner, one of the highest graded runners by Pro Football Focus last year. Lands in a prime spot with open carries with the Bucs. Unfortunately, as I was getting these rankings set, the head coach came out and said, yeah, we still have Peyton Barber here, though. So he wasn't just ready to hand over those workhorse duties, but that's what a head coach is supposed to do. He's not going to just hand it over to a rookie right off the bat. So I do like Ronald Jones. I think his landing spot's pretty solid. I'm going to put him right into this kind of tier right here. Des Bryant. Who knows what his deal is? He's going to get the fuck out of this tier, though. He doesn't belong with some of these names. I'd rather have Alex Collins than Ronald Jones, but Jones could continue climbing pretty steadily here, so I'll move him right into that tier. And then Royce Freeman, the last guy I'm really going to consider. These two guys down here, Nick Chubb, Kerryon Johnson, in much worse committee situations than a lot of these other guys we've been talking about. Their bets for volume are far from sure. Even if I like the talent of Chubb, even if Kerryon Johnson has that Le'Veon Bell-like vision, he's in the disgusting backfield of the Lions. They've already come out and said, we're going to use 3-4 backs a week. So they're not going to ride Kerryon Johnson, even if they should. Nick Chubb isn't going to be a workhorse when you got Carlos Hyde, similar talent. They're paying $5 million a year for, so who knows how that's going to shake out exactly. I think Chubb's going to be the favorite for carries there, but we need to see more before I go all in. But Royce Freeman, the guy I just clicked on, the guy I'm pulling up here, unbelievable steamrolling talent. John Elway already said we need a thumper, we need an early down guy. He went out and got one. And this guy not only can be a thumper, but he can catch the ball, and he can catch the ball really well. They released C.J. Anderson, so obviously the opening is there, the value hole, as we like to call it, for huge volume. I absolutely love Royce Freeman. I think he's going to be neck and neck with Ronald Jones here. And again, those guys have all the flexibility in the world to rise up alongside Sony Michel, potentially even near Rashaad Penny if that workload is confirmed. So that's my ranking of the rookie running backs, and I don't usually tend to rank too many we talk about receivers as rookies. They don't tend to translate quite as often as we do with the running backs. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Calvin Ridley or DJ Moore necessarily. Yeah, they help out their respective quarterbacks, Cam Newton and Matt Ryan, but I'm not expecting a ton of year one instant usability, even though we had that epic year with Beckham and Mike Evans and that whole class that just absolutely defied all expectations. I'm not seeing it from this class, so I'm sticking to running backs with my rookies. Those are the names that are going to definitely be in my top 100. I think Chubb and Kerryon Johnson will sneak their way in once I get a chance to kind of sit down and look at it. But those are the general landing spots for my favorite rookie running backs. Again, it goes Saquon Barkley, then it goes Rashaad Penny, future 3-down back. Then it goes Derrius Guice, is one of my favorite talents of this class, just an absolute steamroller and a good offense. Then I love Sony Michel, who could outscore again any of those two I said ahead of him if the volume's secure. And after him, Ronald Jones and Royce Freeman, just beasts in potential high volume situations. I love those guys. I'll again dig in a little bit deeper with more clarity once I can, but you can just see all of them are going to be in my top 60. Maybe even higher, maybe my top 50. That's how highly I think of this rookie running back class. And I just, again, that stock tip to just never be afraid of the unknown. Even if it's a rookie and you haven't seen it, those are where some of the best values come every single year. If you passed up on rookies last year because they were unproven, well, you really made a serious mistake taking Crowell and his proven disgusting ass instead of a guy like Kareem Hunt, which often happened last year. I'd pray for your soul if you did that. So that's my rookie rankings right now. Let me know your thoughts on that. I'm going to dive into the veterans that were the winners and biggest winners and losers among veterans momentarily as I kind of just catch up on some of these veteran winners. So we're going to be right there. Going to be right back. I'm just pulling up the mailbag questions here. I'm going to have to do that in a new window just to see what we've got for that. So again, let me know what you think of those. Was I crazy in that rookie running back ranking? Is there anybody that's missing that you really need to see? Keep me posted. I'll be checking the comments as we go through this broadcast. Thank you, CJ, tuning in and sharing it. Just a Roto Street faithful to the core. Appreciate that, Big Cat. Nat Jones, thanks for the like. New notifications from you guys. Appreciate that. Alrighty, let's get into the veteran winners and losers as these questions are loading. Again, I don't want to ignore you guys and your questions, but it is a little bit slow moving on here. My computer, it's moving. Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi is not the best here right now. But veteran winners, let's start as we're going and this is loading up. Christian McCaffrey. And unfortunately, I had called him the biggest winner. And earlier today, yesterday, late last night, we had C.J. Anderson land there. So that's two guys we can talk about for the price of one right now. Is Christian McCaffrey in that Panthers backfield. So unfortunately, he was looking like he was going to be a future workhorse, which ultimately, is that the best thing for him? Is that going to be the best usage for him? I'm not sure, but I I don't love the fact that this volume that was looking like 270 carries plus the 100 or so targets that he was going to see is definitely going to be into, because C.J. Anderson is still a decent talent. I don't love the guy. I'm not running out the window to go get him. But historically, Nerve Turner has had a bigger power back to complement a receiving back, with Darren Sproles and LaDainian Tomlinson. I don't think that CJ Anderson is going to be getting LaDainian Tomlinson level work. Of course not. Christian McCaffrey will definitely be eating more into that work. He'll probably even see equal about carries, both around 200-ish carries. But the touchdown upside definitely went down for Christian McCaffrey. Still, the receiving upside's enormous. Norv Turner has targeted his running backs over 30% of the time in the passing game and throughout his career. Now he gets probably the best receiving back he's ever had at his disposal, and that includes guys like Darren Sproles and ridiculous receiving talent. So even if they have C.J. Anderson there, I'm going to still say the volume's going to be going up for McCaffrey. And he was already really high in my rankings, 31. I can't put him above a guy like A.J. Green, but Jordan Howard, that's a little bit closer for me. So I'll say Christian McCaffrey can kind of slide in there. I might move Howard back up. I'm not quite positive or quite sold. But McCaffrey, if C.J. Anderson wasn't there, he'd be shooting up. And then we talk about C.J. Anderson, who I think is not a horrible fit there. Obviously, he had way more volume coming at him in Denver. But in Carolina, he'll still see a decent amount. He's going to definitely be above guys like Peyton Barber, who obviously have to move down right now. He'll be in the veteran losers. We'll get to him in a second. But he's a decent fit. Like I said, Norv Turner loves to have power running backs, loves to feed them on the goal line. So I think C.J. Anderson does come with 8 to 10 touchdown upside with around 700, 800 yards. He'll sprinkle in for some receptions as well as a solid receiving back. So I think C.J. Anderson's not in a bad spot at all. So I don't hate that landing spot at all. I finally got some of these questions pulled up on this tab, or some comments that people are making here. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. We got Mikey Weber. I think Darnold at 2 is going to be a bust. I think so too. Too low on Rojo. We'll see, CJ. We'll see. I'm just nervous that Barber is going to be more involved than I was expecting originally. And how do I feel about Nyheim Hines? I think he's a great receiving back. I think, Mikey, I think when you look at Coach Frank Reich's history, he loves having that receiving satellite back. And obviously Marlon Mack is similarly skilled and similarly built. But I think Reich will definitely, he didn't draft him in the 4th round without the intention to seriously use him, and he's an incredible receiver. So I think Hines could do some real damage there with the Colts, especially in PPR leagues. He's a name I'm definitely putting on the radar. I just didn't rank him above guys like Nick Chubb and Kerryon Johnson, who are at the bottom of my list. I didn't think he belonged in there with them. So I would say he does not belong as high as those guys. Alrighty, back to the veteran winners. Our next guy on the list is Jay Ajayi. So the J train, I know again, people might puke when you hear that name, given how bad of a bust he was last year. But you got to look at his offseason. You got to, if a true wolf just kind of forgets that past and looks ahead to the future and says, what's this guy staring at this year? And Jay Ajayi is staring at the early down roll at minimum in one of the league's most explosive offenses. They actually averaged the most points per game last year. The Eagles did at 28.9. And now you're giving me the guy that's going to get the short yardage volume. You're giving me the guy that's going to get the first and second down carries because LeGarrette Blount is removed, which then caused speculation. Oh, they're going to add Guice. They're going to add this rookie, that rookie. Nope, they didn't add anybody. So Jay Ajayi, some people dropped out of the broadcast just as I mentioned his name. So apologize if he makes you puke, but I love the guy. I think this year he's going to realize that value, moving him above Travis Kelce. Again, I was already pretty high on the guy, so does he have tons of room to rise? No. But when you consider he's ranked at 45, 46 by experts, I'm clearly much higher on him. I think he's in a prime position. I love the offensive line. I love the blocking schemes they run. Lots of traps, lots of pulls, lots of counters that get him in space with blockers in front of him. And not that he has the best breakaway speed, but his open field vision is incredible. So I think Jay Ajayi is set up for great volume and a great offense. And overall, if you're treating him as anything less than a high upside RB2, then I want to be in your league and I want to draft him every single time. His value is going to be sky high if he continues to go towards the end of round 4. I think he's an absolute joke of a price, and I love Jay Ajayi this year. So I think he's a definite winner of this draft. Kenyon Drake, another guy who's got to be considered a winner just because they didn't add anybody too threatening. Did they add Frank Gore, the corpse of him at least? Yes, he's there. But ultimately, no exciting rookies brought in. They brought in Kalen Balaj in the 4th round, but 4th round rookie, give me a break. That's not a genuine threat. I thought he looked genuinely special, Drake did last year. Definitely seems like a more explosive talent than even Joe Mixon, who I loved coming out of the draft last year. Average Pro Football Focus's most yards per contact, yards after contact, ever per attempt. So, I mean, in all the recorded running backs they have, Kenyon Drake was the by far best at breaking tackles and making yardage after contact, which he needed to do because that line is atrocious. But Drake was incredible, even with those terrible circumstances. Had the highest single graded game by Pro Football Focus last year. So the guy did some serious damage, Kenyon Drake did. Had no competition really added. I think he's set up for a low-end RB1 type of season and maybe even above a guy like Adam Thielen right now. We'll see. I mean, I could see Guice having some shenanigans, but we've seen Guice also in the past. He'll say he wants a committee, and then we saw C.J. Anderson go on an absolute tear for the final 7 games, had 800 yards and 10 TDs in a 10-game span. It was absolutely absurd. Was the number 1 running back in fantasy for that time. Then he had Matt Forte in 13 games, finished as the RB7 still. He just loves riding guys to intense volume. Noshawn Moreno in 2008 was the PPR RB4. I mean, Gase might say he doesn't want a workhorse, but his history suggests otherwise. He's even come out and said, I want a running back that I don't have to substitute for, that can play on all 3 downs. Drake's that guy. He's a receiver. Even if he's never been a workhorse, never had over 100 touches in his career, the guy can get it done. So I'm a big fan of Kenyon Drake and what he could do in this offense with no real competition added. In terms of other veteran winners, we'll keep going. Alex Collins, big boost. We saw him down here in some of these tiers. Again, they added no rookie running back. They added none. And that was a big talk after he's been getting lukewarm endorsements all offseason. So I'm moving Alex Collins right up into this, even above Guice, I'd say. Remember, this guy finished as the RB8 ever since he took the reins as a starter. He was the RB8 in fantasy last year. So this guy was an absolute beast, got the highest grade as a runner by Pro Football Focus last year, and his vision's incredible. His feet are incredibly fast. I like Alex Collins a lot. That line continues to improve, and this just tells me they're comfortable with him in that early down role. The only thing I want to make sure of is what is Kenneth Dixon's status? What is his role moving forward? But ultimately, you can't expect them to just hand over that job to this injury-prone Kenneth Dixon who keeps getting himself in trouble off the field when you got Alex Collins just absolutely rolling right now. I think Alex Collins is a huge winner here. Flies up my rankings right now. Definitely a high upside RB2. Lamar Miller, not a guy I love as a player, but definitely a winner of this draft. Definitely a guy I was way lower on in the expert consensus, over 30 spots below the expert consensus, all the way down here. That was when there was talk that Donta Foreman could steal this job, but the latest news is Donta Foreman might not even be ready for the regular season, is a candidate for the PUP, meaning he'll miss the first 6 games. That could be horrible. Despite that news about Donta Foreman being so far removed from returning, they didn't add any single running back to threaten Lamar Miller. Do I know why? I can't answer that question. Lamar Miller's been one of the most inefficient backs, breaking a tackle on only 8% of his carries as a featured back on like over 500 carries. It's been absolutely abysmal, but the volume has been insane for him, and it's going to continue to be insane. And I think the quality of that volume is going to increase, obviously, when you have a guy like Deshaun Watson returning to the lineup. Speaking of Deshaun Watson right here, I'm not going to take Miller above him, but above a guy like Crabtree, who might be a little bit too high, sure. This guy, again, Lamar Miller, RB7 when Deshaun Watson was in the starting lineup. That's just how much better this overall offense is when they have Watson in there. The scoring chances are so much more. The running lanes are much more wide open because you got such a threatening presence behind center, a guy that can sling it so deep to explosive talents like Will Fuller. Miller was killing it. Even if the talent was shitty, he was killing it because of such a great setup. So I like Lamar Miller much more than I did going into the draft. I thought for sure they were going to add somebody. Maybe Foreman's going to come back. And I do think Foreman by the end of the year is that starter. But for the first half of the season or so, as long as Watson's staying healthy, you got a great back in Lamar Miller. Steady RB2 numbers, even if the talent doesn't warrant the type of volume that he's about to see. In terms of other veteran winners, Aaron Jones, guy that I absolutely love, and by far the only worthwhile Packers running back last year. I know that Jamal Williams put up bigger games towards the end of the season, but he was just so inefficient with the volume he got, whereas Aaron Jones was one of the most efficient backs in the league. In fact, when you compare his yards per carry to the team's yards per carry, that was the best in the league in terms of the differential between how much better he was than the running backs around him, and it wasn't even close. Aaron Jones was that much better. In fact, he had more 20-yard runs than guys like Ezekiel Elliott, Le'Veon Bell. The list went on, the extensive list of how many more 20-plus yard runs. This guy was incredibly explosive, incredibly efficient, had some massive games from weeks 4 through 7 when he was the starter once Ty Montgomery went down. Aaron Jones was the RB5 in fantasy. So this guy had some stretches where he was an absolute beast, a true RB1, and now is set up to see some volume. They didn't make a move. You just got to hope that they recognize as a team how much better Aaron Jones was than everybody else. But I got to put him above a guy like Chris Thompson, for now at least, until I see what that backfield shakeout is. You got to make sure that Aaron Jones is moving up your rankings and someone that you're giving much higher consideration to after the draft. This guy's explosive, incredible, and expected to see much more volume to go with the insane efficiency that we saw last year. AJ2K, baby. I think he's going to be a huge steal this year. And Marshawn Lynch, beast mode. Seems incredibly unsexy on paper, Marshawn Lynch does. He's old and just washed up. But man, few things point to the fact that he was just in a very unideal situation. One was they were running zone blocking for Marshawn Lynch. Is he not the most prototypical power back in the league? I mean, come on. What are you doing there? Again, the head coach is fired for a reason. And we got John Gruden coming in who's just said, I need me some beast mode. I need full-time beast mode. I need you to be my guy this year. I want to ride you. And he's already said, I was so impressed when I did the film. This is still the beast that we used to know and love. Nothing's gone yet. They were just misusing him. And you look at the stats to kind of back that up. Once they switched more to a power scheme after their bye to start fitting their actual talent, what a novel concept, Raiders, that Marshawn Lynch had 625 of his 890 yards, so 70% of his rushing output, 5 of his 7 touchdowns came in the second half of the year. That's a 1,250-yard pace and 10 TD pace for a season. That would be low-end RB1 numbers, what he was averaging. And that was, again, with a coach that was not using him properly. Now he's got a guy that's in his corner fully. I think Marshawn Lynch could see some huge rise. They didn't add anybody other than Doug Martin this offseason, who we know how bad Doug Martin's been. I think Marshawn Lynch really is going to be undervalued because he's so old. Was the 4th highest graded in terms of yards after contact by Pro Football Focus. I'm still going up. Foreman's going to get moved down. Carson's going to get moved down. Burkhead's going to get moved down. He belongs in this tier of these RB2s, these middling RB2s, alongside Aaron Jones and, more volume even guaranteed than Aaron Jones. Behind one of the best offensive lines. They averaged 1.4 yards, running backs averaged 1.4 yards before contact last year, which is towards the bottom half of the league, except on power runs, where they averaged nearly 2. So, again, full-time power scheme, a guy that John Gruden has already come out and said, I want to ride, I want that beast back, and clearly he's added full backs. This is John Gruden's style of running back. He's going to be fed, and he's going to feast. So, love Marshawn Lynch. Even if you think he's unsexy going into the year, I think you're going to get a steal. I think it's great value on Marshawn Lynch. Let me know your thoughts, though. If that makes you puke a little bit, I'd love to hear why. Last but not least, Marlon Mack, who's been labeled as the biggest winner by every single site out there. I don't get it. I don't think he's the biggest winner by any means. Let's find him on the rankings. Just because it's going to be a gross committee. I mean, yes, their offensive line, it's an obvious one on paper. Their offensive line is vastly improved after drafting that absolute mammoth Mitchell out of Notre Dame. I mean, the guy's an absolute savage, going to kill people off the offensive line at guard. Then they spent another second-round high draft capital pick on another offensive lineman. So they know what they're doing in terms of they needed to beef that lineup. They're starting to do it. But Marlon Mack doesn't project to be much more than a committee back. Frank Reich's always been more of a committee-based guy. They drafted Hines. We saw that comment earlier from Mikey Weber about Hines. He's going to be heavily involved, especially in the receiving game. They got Robert Turbin, who they always seem to love for whatever reason. Even though Marlon Mack has been labeled as the front runner for this job, I'm not running out and sprinting and being like, I need to get Marlon Mack on my team yet. Even if he was pretty explosive, despite playing through a torn labrum last year, it's not a guy that I'm sprinting out to get. Do I want him above like Marquise Lee and Pierre Garçon? Yeah. I mean, he brings a lot more to the table. They don't belong in this tier right here. So I'm just going to move this whole tier up and just kind of... There's a lot of gross guys that we need to adjust here after the draft. You're talking about Marquise Lee. He doesn't need to belong there. Samaje Perine doesn't belong in the top, even close to the top 100. LeGarrette Blount. I mean, these are guys that we'll be getting rid of and moving down as we go through these rankings. Chris Carson will definitely be getting a healthy bump down. But again, Marlon Mack, committee back. The line improved, but ultimately not a guy I'm sprinting out and saying, this is the number one winner. I need to have him on all my teams by any means. And let's get to a guy I am going to be sprinting out to get. That's Juju Smith-Schuster. So, I mean, some absurd stats on Juju Smith-Schuster. Nobody averaged a higher passer rating than Juju Smith-Schuster and Big Ben in terms of wide receiver QB combo on the deep ball. The guy absolutely crushed it. And then Martavis Bryant gets traded, so that huge threat for deep targets is completely removed. They added a great deep ball rookie receiver, sure, but it's not Martavis Bryant. Any game that Martavis Bryant didn't play, but Antonio Brown and Juju played together, Juju actually had the highest target share. He had 32% target share. So he dominated in games when Bryant was removed as compared to only 13% target share when Bryant and Brown were also in the lineup. So he's about to see his volume skyrocket in one of the most explosive offenses in the league. I think he should rank right alongside A.J. Green. I'm lower on A.J. Green, I admit that. I think I'm too low. I think Devonta Freeman belongs below him. Mark Ingram, we're going to talk about 4-game suspension. He's going to be getting a bump down. But Juju Smith, clearly I'm going to be all in on this guy. Even if he's the number 2 receiver on his team, that team is going to be chucking for 4,500 yards as they do every year. Juju's going to be a huge part of that. His volume's set to skyrocket this year with Martavis Bryant removed. So now I'm going to pull the Facebook back up, kind of see is there any other comments, questions I could be answering. We've got getting a lot of interaction now, which I appreciate and like. Which we getting some really good comments here. Some head shakes. I wonder what that was in regards to. JR and Jelly, if you're still watching, let me know why you're shaking your head with this blonde female at me. Sam Trakoff asking, why is Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers not higher? And that's simply because I love that question. And it's because I don't value quarterbacks. There's so many in fantasy that you can go and get deep. Pat Mahomes and Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers. These guys are going to fall to rounds 11, 10, ridiculous value on these types of quarterbacks. Whereas I'm going to have to spend a second, third rounder to get Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers. No thanks. The opportunity cost is what we call that. And supply and demand. We take that stock market approach. When you apply those type of principles to it, it never makes any sense to draft a quarterback that high. If you take an Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson up where they're going to go in this range, that means you're passing up on these high upside RB2s or huge upside wide receiver 2s that can just really round out a lineup. And again, you start one quarterback, whereas you start 3 wide receivers, maybe 3 running backs because you have a flex. One of my favorite strategies is to have 3 massive workhorses that are getting 20-plus touches a game into my lineups. If I can build a stable of backs, the 3 workhorse attack, like that, I'm absolutely going all in on that attack, and taking a quarterback that early is going to make my chances of hitting those wide receivers and running backs at those skill positions, hitting those guys much trickier. The bust rate is obviously far higher as you go down the rate, whereas at quarterback you can find, look at some of Watson last year was off the waiver wire. So many top 10 quarterbacks end up being guys that weren't even drafted year in and year out. You can always stream quarterbacks, play the matchups. So I appreciate the question, Sam, but ultimately I'm always passing up on quarterbacks because I need to build up my skill positions a lot faster and a lot harder than that. So good question, though. Thank you for that one. I'm just checking out. Did I miss any? Thanks, Keegan and Norton and Mahan, for joining. I appreciate it. Let me know if you guys have any specific questions. While I'm staring at Mark Ingram, just want to make sure this news is clear. We didn't have it scheduled in our menu here. Mark Ingram is suspended for 4 games for PEDs, so the guy's juicing, and that obviously hurts his stock. Even if he's going to come back and be that RB1 that we knew and loved last year, missing those first 4 games definitely hurts. He's going to get a bump down to, Hyde's going to be going down in a second too. But we'll bump down Ingram to this area right there, given that 4-game suspension. So make sure you know that. Make sure you're tracking that. And now we're going to be moving into veteran losers. I'm going to take a quick break just to take a sip of water, plug my computer in, get in any more questions, and in 30 seconds, I will be right back with you guys. Alrighty. We are back. I love to see Chris Jason's also on Team Juju with me. I like Chris Jason's takes. He's always a loyal listener, loyal fan. The RSJ and always has strong takes. So Team Juju all the way. If I'm crazy at 26, let me know. 25 even, that's where I have him. But I'm all aboard the Juju Express this year. Clearly, I'm all in on him. Might have him a little too high. Might reconsider him in some of these workhorse backs, because again, I'm a workhorse breeder. I love the bell cow backs, but still, Juju's upside is so huge in that offense this year. We're going to wrap up the program today with any veteran losers, meaning guys that lost value, and you see this cover picture, and that's Tyrod Taylor we're going to start with. Tyrod Taylor loses some huge steam. I had him higher than maybe any experts have this year. He's at my quarterback 12. He was at the quarterback 11 before I moved Drew Brees up, where he rightfully belonged. And again, I loved everything about his setup. He's been the QB 8 in 2016 and 2015, despite throwing to nobody, despite being in a bland attack, because of his legs. He's a great mobile threat, and I do think he's going to have some pretty monster efforts to begin the year, especially when you consider who he's now throwing to: Josh Gordon, Jarvis Landry. The talent's there for some huge games, and I think he could be a good QB1 streamer for however long he lasts. That's the real issue, though, is how long is this guy going to last? When you got now Baker Mayfield breathing down your neck, the most pro-ready quarterback of this class, and in my opinion, by far the best talent of this quarterback class. His leash got so much shorter, did Tyrod Taylor's. So that makes me much lower on him. I'm going to bump him down to, these guys are going to be starting all year. So Sir Blake Bortles, maybe Tyrod Taylor, he's going to have more upside than Blake Bortles any given week he's starting. But ultimately, Tyrod Taylor's leash is just going to be too short. So I don't love Tyrod nearly as much as I did going into the draft. By far one of the biggest losers, obviously out of my top 100 overall now. That gives you a little sneak peek at my quarterback rankings too. But he's a huge faller, obviously, for me. We'll look next at Rex Burkhead, who we already talked about. Sony Michel. We thought Rex Burkhead might inherit that kind of Dion Lewis lead, versatile guy role. But no, it's not going to be Burkhead. It's going to be Sony Michel. You don't take somebody at 31 overall with huge glaring defensive deficiencies and not make Sony Michel the main guy. So Burkhead, will he be involved? Sure. He'll probably still be a touchdown guy. He was very efficient at the stripe last year. Can still catch the ball. But ultimately, this is going to be the Sony Michel backfield. So I look here. Burkhead I already moved him down 23 spots just out of disgust. And he's going to be moving down further. He's going to be probably falling outside of my top 100. Again, huge upside as a handcuff to Sony Michel. If Sony Michel's fumbling problems come back into play, Burkhead is clearly proven in this offense and has shown that he can get it done. but his chances at getting that done, at least early on, are slim to none. So he falls. I'm going to be moving. Again, I don't have these guys scheduled to talk about, but I definitely would rather have Cam Newton than Marlon freaking Mack, and Drew Brees right alongside with him. So this also, though, again, Sam Trakoff was asking, why do you have these quarterbacks so low? And I was talking about supply, demand, opportunity cost. Even though I really like these guys and their upside now, 91 and 92 is going to be a whole lot lower than most experts on those quarterbacks right there. So I just don't buy into drafting a quarterback early. It's never in my style at all. But Rex Burkhead, among the biggest losers of this draft, as is Carlos Hyde. We've alluded to the fact that he's going to be taking quite the tumble after Nick Chubb was added there. So where is Hyde currently located? Let's find him. Yeah, 44. Again, running behind a great offensive line. I loved what his upside could have been, but Nick Chubb's probably going to be the workhorse there. And so Hyde has to fall. And for now, he's going to be, again, right around Marlon Mack. This is, I guess, a good time to add Nick Chubb, who I have sitting down here as I bash on Carlos Hyde. It's time to get Nick Chubb involved. And how high up do I want to go? He's getting featured work behind a good offensive line, but still going to be a committee. He's going to be above Hyde and above these guys. Probably above Duke Johnson because he's going to be more of the featured back. And I am going to say above C.J. Anderson. Peyton Barber's going to be moved down next. Chubb right around these guys because we're about to be sending Carson, Foreman, and Barber plummeting down the rankings. So don't worry, those guys don't belong in this tier, but I think Chubb does. One guy I didn't talk about who I have to send flying up these rankings, you might just see me click his name, is Hunter Henry. The team has already informed Antonio Gates that he will not be coming back, which just opens up the door. The gates are opened. I'm so punny. For Hunter Henry to just have an absolute explosion. I'm calling him this year's Zach Ertz in terms of a guy that's been clearly showing his talent since he's been in the league. I saw a ridiculous stat in like 17 of 25 games where he's been targeted. He's averaged or he's had either 70 yards or a touchdown in 17 of those 20 games, something crazy like that, crazy efficiency. And that's despite seeing only 44% of the team's tight end targets as opposed to 54 for the corpse of Antonio Gates. So this just old, disgusting man was getting more targets than this burgeoning young talent. And the team finally recognized it's time to feature this guy. Hunter Henry is going to be a beast. I'm seeing a huge season from him this year. Again, like I said, this year's Zach Ertz. I'm rating him right around Evan Ingram. So where do I have Ingram slide in? Right up here. I'm going to put Hunter Henry even just a little bit above him. I think the touchdown upside's mammoth. We've seen Phillip Rivers, a historic seam stretch targeter. I think Hunter Henry just going to be an absolute monster. And you're not going to have to take him at 49. I know I'm aggressively ranking him here. You're not going to have to take him that high. But ultimately, I think he's going to be that next elite tight end. And to get him after, you don't have to spend a second, third round pick like you did on a Kelsey, like you do on a Zach Ertz. You can get this guy probably around 6'7" and have yourself an elite tight end. Absolutely love that move. I know it says Carlos Hyde here on the screen, but I saw Hunter Henry's name. I knew I didn't make a slide for him, and I should have. Hunter Henry, one of the biggest winners of this offseason so far. Let's keep going, though. Hyde's been bashed enough. Chris Carson. We already talked about Rashaad Penny, how he's going to be the 3-down horse, which just means Chris Carson, I don't even care where he goes, just going out, he's done. No need to have him anywhere in your top 100. Nothing more than a handcuff at this point. Similarly, we're looking at Peyton Barber, who might have a little more upside to stay involved than a guy like Chris Carson, just because they've already said, we still have Barber and we still like Barber. So they haven't just said Rojo, as Pete Carroll did with Rashaad Penny, saying he's our 3-down back, we're going to give him as much touch as we can. They still said Peyton Barber will be involved. So I'm not going to send him just into, the abyss of fantasy down here. Although, why not? I'm not looking at him yet. as the summer goes, I'll be sorting this, bottom 150 out much more. Even, after this broadcast, I kind of want to have 150 solid. So I'll organize that, and Barbara might fall towards the tail end of that. But ultimately, it's probably going to be the Rojo show, Ronald Jones, that is. So Barber, huge faller. And then Jordy Nelson, disgusting. Let's get rid of, I don't have a slide on Foreman, but with the PUP accusations, he's got to be bumped down here and out of the top 100 for now. But then Jordy Nelson, I hope he's not in my top 100. He definitely doesn't belong there. Nope, he's already down at 120. But in terms of the wide receiver rankings, so he's already out of the overall. Let's look at where he falls because Martavis Bryant has been added, which just further dampens his already plummeting stock. Jordy Nelson, I would put, below Martavis Bryant even. Just can't, there's nothing to love about him in this landing spot anymore with Oakland. So he goes from Aaron Rodgers. He went from a potential top 15 guy as Aaron Rodgers number one to now, a wide receiver 50 range. Just a tough offseason for Jordy Nelson. Maybe he proves me and everybody else wrong and can get it done without Aaron Rodgers by his side, but we haven't seen it with any other Packers quarterback. He's a year older, and now he's got far more competition for targets. I don't love anything about Jordy Nelson right now. And that's it for veteran winners and losers. For rookie running backs added. This board is not final. I'm going to kind of sit through the rest of the night, play around with it, and finalize where some of these names go. I just kind of wanted to show you the general area of guys like Cam Meredith, Marshawn Lynch post-draft, Lamar Miller, and how big he's had to rise, Hunter Henry. Definitely lots of movement among the board right now, Juju Smith. But this is just the general ballpark painting. I'm going to definitely go in deeper for the rest of the night, play around, kind of bang out a top 150, and that final board will be up as early as tomorrow, and we'll be promoting that as heavy as can be. But the rest of the program's for mailbags, so I'm going to open back up the live broadcast here on Facebook and take any and all live questions here. We got Alex Trakoff asking Flash Gordon over AJ, soon to jump Evans. I think over AJ, I like. Yes, it's definitely a bit of a risk to have Josh Gordon, especially we don't know if he's going to make it this offseason, but the upside is just enormous, especially now when you got Baker Mayfield potentially throwing him the rock. So yes, I do like Josh Gordon over AJ Green. Not jumping Mike Evans for me, though. Mike Evans is one of my favorites. I know he busted on us last year, but I'm a diehard Mike Evans fan. Always have been, always will be. He's kind of on that year-on, year-off plan. I think he bounces back big this year and has the season that a lot of us were expecting in 2017. And you'll be able to get him not like top 7, 8 overall, but towards the tail end of the second round. So I love that type of value for a guy like Mike Evans. So no, Josh Gordon will not be jumping him unless it's like he's at camp and just looking. So no, he won't. I can't find any situation in which I would take him over him. Any other questions here? I want to make sure I'm seeing them all. Looks like that's kind of wrapped it up. So if you have any, feel free to comment in any questions after the broadcast. I'll be tuning in. I'll be sitting and answering them all as I kind of sort through these rankings. But again, that's the rookies where they've landed, the veterans that are winners, the veterans that are losers in the aftermath. So hopefully that helped to kind of get into my head and get a sense of how I do my rankings and how I think about them. I'll finalize these tonight. Let me know your thoughts on the broadcast overall, how we can get better, what you liked, what you didn't like. These Roto Street Rundowns will be happening more frequently as the season gets closer. For shorter periods, it'll be like 4 or 5 guys that are impacted and then more mailbag based. But for a big series like this, for the draft, for free agencies, we've had a couple longer ones. And as the summer approaches, we'll be kind of retooling it for a more shorter but daily type of situation. So let us know what you like, what we can do better. And again, any other questions we can help you with, let us know. Hopefully this was helpful for you. I'm the Wolf. I'm out. See you guys.